Coming up today, we're harvesting some of the celery that we've grown in our own garden, and we're harvesting our fall potatoes, our second planting. We've got some potatoes on the roots, but did we have anything in our self-watering container? Stay tuned and find out. All that and more coming up today on the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener. Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener is sponsored in part by, for all your non-GMO, organic and heirloom vegetable, flowers, and herb seeds, visit dollarseed.com. Sioux Growing Supply, located in Wausau, Wisconsin, focusing on certified leaf compost, an excellent amendment for poor soil, retains moisture and adds nutrients, which equals less watering. Available in labor-saver, pre-filled trays and pots, bag and bulk. Visit SiouxCompost.com. Organic fertilizer for the health-conscious organic home gardener. Family owned and operated. Visit thewiveggardeners.com. Don't poison your soil with municipal water. Attach a body, mind, and soil hose filter. Free shipping exclusively through the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com. Just click on the body, mind, and soil icon. Authentic Haven brand soil conditioner for the home gardener. Easy to brew. Visit ManureTea.com. No measuring, no thinking. Stamp it, plant it, stop plotting, start planting. GardenStamp.com. Welcome to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener. I'm Joy Baird. We are in the back side of the garden. It's getting later in fall. Our celery it's time to harvest some of our celery. Celery can grow, these are only about a foot to 16 inches tall. They can get, 24 inches, 3 foot tall. And we've noticed a couple of things with the issues that could potentially be for the celery. One, it's very dark, very green, indicates good nitrogen. There is some yellowing up there, which indicates some issues there. It could be some potassium, some phosphate, or some nitrogen lacking. We did cover this bed and work in a lot of coffee grounds. Now, also the other contributing factor is we are on the back side of the garden. There's a big tree above us, and this will get early morning light for about 5 to 6 hours. So that's two of the reasons why this is not as tall as it could potentially be. Nevertheless, we are very excited. This is the first time we've had the first time we've ever had a celery harvest. So what we're going to do is we're going to harvest half of the celery, then take it into Holly's kitchen, where she'll show how we can preserve it so we can use it all winter long, because this is a lot of celery for one person to deal with or try to eat all at one time. So there's two ways we can harvest this. One, we could just pull it out of the ground. Oh my, look at the roots here. Now this is all started from seed. This was not all of the roots. Now you can, well, it's fragrant. I'm going to get rid of the dry leaves, the discoloring leaves. Now you can see there's a couple of things going on with this plant. One, this doesn't look like a plant that you would buy at the local grocery store because it's homegrown. There's different techniques and different things that the commercial grower does, unlike what we're doing. A couple of things here. We've got the main trunk here, and we've got essentially what is little pups or little plants that are growing off this main trunk. You can see all along where the surface of the layer of soil was, that you've got these little baby celery plants that are growing. Now we have experienced this by accident a couple of years ago when we just grew a couple of plants. We brought them inside, we had some soil we dumped out into one of the hanging baskets, and all of a sudden we saw stuff growing in it. What had happened was we had 2 or 3 plants, so several years ago. We just cut it flush with the ground in the container, and we got rid of the soil, threw it in another container, and their roots started to regrow. So I'm not certain that that can happen like you would for a lettuce plant, but I from experience have seen it grow just from the flushness of the root. So I'm just going to cut it off here. There we go. I've seen it where you could you know, essentially regrow that out of the side shoots there. So it's a beautiful, beautiful piece of celery. I'm going to get rid of that one there just because it has got more yellow than green on it. And since we're in the garden here, we're just going to trim off the yellow portions. And look at that. That is really pretty. We're going to take it inside, and Holly's going to do some things with it that we can preserve it. One, we can put a couple of these in the fridge for several weeks, and we can use it for different snacks or cooking applications. And then she's going to show us how we can freeze it for long-term storage. So for the rest of them, I'm not going to pull them out. I'm just going to cut them flush with the ground level. And then in the spring, we will probably, well, we won't leave many of these to go to seed because we have thousands of seeds already. So we're just going to take and throw that. This is going to be one of our compost piles, so it's not a big deal. So I'm going to get half of this bed harvested, and the other half we're going to let set for probably another month or so, or until we get the forecast where it's going to be frozen temperatures. Then we'll go ahead and harvest the rest of it.
Okay, so now we're ready to go ahead and we're going to get this ready for freezing. I washed it, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to chop it off near the bottom here. And then I'm going to chop it into smaller pieces. And I'm just going to put this in my compost. And then at this point, you know, you kind of want to look at the inside of your celery because there's going to be these little tiny pieces like this. And you can put those in a bag for dehydrating, or you can do something like making chicken, or not chicken stock, but any kind of stock with them. So I got those there. And then I'm just going to take my celery. I'm just going to chop it up until where I get to my first set of leaves here. And it's pretty simple. You just chop it up like you would any other celery. Now, since this is a little bit smaller because we had that partial shade and it's homegrown, you know, you might have to do a little bit more work once you get to towards the leaves because some of these stalks are bigger than the others. But freezing it is really simple. So what you do, all you do is you just take your freezer bag, and you can use whatever size you want. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put it in a big freezer bag. And then you don't have to blanch it or anything like that. All you have to do is just go ahead, get your freezer bag. And you could even do this in a jar or something. But now you get your freezer bag, get it in there. And then as you harvest your celery, you can add to it. Just put this in your freezer. And then as you need it, you just take a chunk off. So say you feel you need about half a cup or something of celery, just go ahead, break your chunk off, and go ahead and add that to some soup or whatever you're making. And if you have a lot extra, you can make some sort of vegetable stock, or if you make any sort of bone stock or bone broth, you can go ahead and add that as well. And with the leaves, we might go ahead and dehydrate those, or we might just set those aside in another bag for stock as well.
So watering your garden for weeds may seem like an oxymoronic, but there's two types of gardeners. One that feels that getting the weeds out of the garden is beneficial to the plants that you've planted, so all the nutrients can go to those individual vegetables or fruits. The other group has a mind thought of leaving everything alone, planting your crop and letting the strong survive, saving those seeds and replanting them again, and not worrying about the weeds at all, letting the weeds and the plants grow together, and the strongest will survive. Whichever the side of the fence you are on, that's your business. But if you're in the side or on the group of getting the weeds out of your garden, you want to water your garden for weeds, especially in the fall times, and you can do this very early in the spring if your beds are already prepped like some of our raised berms are. The benefit to this, and this is only if it is legal in your area and you don't have water restrictions, is you can see right here we've got radishes over here. Our fall radishes are starting to bulb up, and you see weeds that are starting to pop up. This is lettuce. There's some grass here. Now, I'll show you what happens whenever, what's going on here. We prepped this bed about 2 months ago, and I'm just going to gently pull this up. What is happening is weeds have a defense mechanism that they will regrow off just a very small piece of root. We've talked about this several times here on the program. And what happens is, I'm trying to get all of this, there we go. trying to get all of the root out, because this root will propagate a new piece of grass or weed. So by watering your garden now, one, you're hydrating the soil if it's not raining on a regular basis, which is feeding the microbes, which is helping the worms, which makes everybody happy. But also you can get what seeds will germinate now. You can go ahead and get those out of your garden, so that's one less problem, or one less thing that you have to do in the spring. If you can get, let's just say you can get rid of 25% of the weeds through the seed germination now, that's a significant amount that you don't have to deal with in the spring. This is just something that you want to think about. If this is something as a gardener that you want to work towards, a weedless type of garden, or weedless, W-E-E-D-L-E-S-S type of garden, by getting as many weeds out in the fall as you can, so there's much less you need to do in the spring.
Also, you want to take the rings off when you're storing your canning items. So once your jars are sealed and it's been 24 hours, you just go ahead, take those rings off, and which is good because then you don't have to buy these. You can just keep reusing them, and you just store it like that. And the reason is for a couple of reasons. One is that if it did not seal correctly and it becomes unsealed, it's going to be noticeable. You're going to see the lid come off, and then when you open it up, you're not going to hear it make that noise. The other reason is because if there is something that's causing something funny to go wrong in there, and it's going to maybe have, I guess, swelling, then instead of the jar breaking, then the top's just going to come off, and you'll see something. You'll definitely see something at that point.
This is our second planting of potatoes. It's middle of October and we've got potatoes growing that's ready to harvest. We harvested our first planting that we did back in late April, early May, in mid to late July. So what we decided to do, we had some potatoes that we got from our local organic store that was sprouting in the pantry. So we decided, let's put them in the ground. So we normally would not do this because the weather here in southeast Wisconsin becomes very, very warm during the summer months. This year was an exception. Potatoes do not like extreme heat. If it was normal, average temperature that we normally have here, these potatoes would not grow, because once the soil gets 85, 90 degrees, they shut off, they don't grow. But because we had a very mild, cold summer, these potatoes did quite well. So we're just going to dump them out here. This was filled with certified leaf compost from Sue's, and it's in a self-watering container. So I'm going to try to do this without getting too much mud here. I see a lot of potatoes here. Okay, all right, let's see what the harvest will yield here. These were just a store-bought potato, nothing fancy. Looking good here. Growing in good compost obviously is a major contributor to the success that we have. We do have 3 more plants that's in the ground right now that we're not harvesting because they're not dying off. And when they do die off, we'll go ahead and harvest those. You can see on these potatoes that even if we would have left them in longer and the weather would have been nice, there's more potatoes that are forming on the roots, but that's just not going to happen because it's going to freeze eventually here. These are going to be nice, tender potatoes. So that is pretty much what we have here for, oh, there's more there. All right, more. That's pretty much what we're going to have here for our potato harvest. For throwing, we put 3 potatoes in that container, and we got a good 1.5 to 2 pounds out of it. So if you're going to grow fall potatoes, you want to make sure that you have adequate weather that is mild enough that the potatoes will actually produce, that it's not so hot that the potatoes will shut off and not produce at all. Thanks for watching. Join us again next time for more organic gardening and food preserving. I'm Joy Barrett, and this has been the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.